All right, part 2 of this alphabetical draft breakdown here. We did not know that we were going to go. We should have known that we were going to go really long on the first half of
That's
part
on
1.
us. We got to stop just thinking we're going to do anything good.
Right. Just anything efficient time-wise at the very least. But it gives us more time to be able to go into the second half of these teams. So quite literally exactly how it's broken down alphabetically if you go through the MLB draft tracker. So we're starting with Milwaukee. We're ending with Washington. If you missed part 1 but somehow stumbled upon this one, we started with, who would that be? The Braves at the top?
QRST.
Yeah.
No, Arizona.
Oh.
Arizona,
Oh,
Atlanta.
I whiffed. I thought you were joking. No, we didn't.
No. ARIATL, right? So, we're going, it was Arizona, Atlanta. I'll just go through it. Part 1, Arizona, Atlanta, Baltimore, Boston, Cubs, White Sox, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Colorado, Detroit, Houston, Kansas City, Angels, Dodgers, and Marlins. So in this one, Brewers, Twins, Mets, Yankees, A's, Phillies, Pirates, Padres, Giants, Mariners, Cardinals, Rays, Rangers, Blue Jays, Nats.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Why not, right?
I'm excited. And again, we have a bonus episode that is in the works. Basically, I'm waiting. I'm fielding questions. So you still have time if you want to subscribe to the bonus episode in the episode description. We're doing a bonus mailbag to answer all of your draft questions, but we will do a regular mailbag as well. Correct. The purpose of the bonus mailbag is you're guaranteed to get your question answered, but we will do a draft mailbag sometime next week and just kind of field questions and answer as many as we can for a regular episode. But if you want to make sure to get yours in, that link is in the episode description. Draft rankings from before the draft are also in the episode description. We will be working on some draft grades, as arbitrary as that is. It's fun, little conversation thing. That will be on justbaseball.com as well.
Yes, and we start part 2 with the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers had the head scratcher of the first round. Who is Braylon Payne? But Braylon Payne went 17th overall to Milwaukee. They had a bunch of picks in the front 70. They had 4 of the top 70 picks. So they went Braylon Payne, the Elkins High School outfielder from Texas, 17th overall. 34th overall in competitive balance round A. They go and grab arguably the most powerful, I can't say arguably the most powerful guy in baseball because we saw Caglione and Condon both go in the top 6. But outside of that, outside of the first round, the most powerful guy in this draft in Blake Burke, the Tennessee first baseman. He went 34th. 57th, it was Bryce Meckage from the Pennington School in New Jersey, a right-hander. And then Chris Lavonis, another New Jersey high school right-hander, went 17th. It seems like the high school righties from Jersey are pretty darn good. Braylon Payne made us do a double take. It's I don't know who that is.
They didn't have highlights dialed up for the ESPN broadcast.
No highlights for him. No highlights for Dante Nori either. But Payne and then Burke makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, and I would say the only other guy from raw power I'd say was Dakota Jordan. But you got to hit the ball so we'll talk game power here.
Right.
Brock Burke, I do think it was the best game power easily outside of the top 30. I think he gets into it better than Tommy White and some of these other guys, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. We know the Brewers like to get creative with the drafts. We know that they generally like to eat in the later rounds, and we saw the benefit of that in real time at the Futures game with Cooper Pratt, who was a later round pick that they were very excited about and was a key for them to sign in the last class. So I think this was the same thing where they wanted to save in the first round. Payne was more of a second round type of he was expected to be a sneaky second round pick, maybe even third round. So that part of it's crazy, but they're going to save a lot of money there. He fits the bill of exactly what they like to do too. Or what they like to look for, which is this all slappish hitting, drives the ball to all fields, speedster outfielder that can just really set the table at the top. 70 runner. They love those types. Then you get that masher, which they also do if they're not going to go with the athletic spray the ball guy, they don't care about defense and they want those bat first masher types they do seem to get those underrated guys. Either it's going to be that hit tool with lack of position or just masher with lack of position. In this case, I think Burke's a little bit of both. I think the hit tool gets underrated. I really do think that he is underrated in general in this class. I know we've seen some rankings, having him in the 50 to 60 range. I think this was a top 40 prospect in the class. I understand he's limited to first. I love the swing. I love what he was able to do. He's a little bit aggressive, which hurt, but I mean, this is a really good hitter and a guy that I think could be a nice get for them. And then Chris Levonis, I think, is the really, really fascinating get here because Levonis, he can run it up to triple digits now. And he was somebody that had a lot of helium as the season progressed, as the spring progressed. And I think this was a big reason why they wanted to save in the first round. Like, this is a potential monster, like absolute monster. If you're sitting in the upper 90s, another guy, guess what? He can flash RPMs north of 3,000.
Everybody can do a 3,000 RPM curveball. Everybody's upper 90s now. He's not special.
This guy might be special. It's triple digits. It's 6'2", loose, fluid, athletic delivery. This is a fun player. So 18 years old as well. Again, helium, and they capitalize on that. Mekic, another guy that I know a lot of people are very high on, very excited about as an intriguing prep arm also. So they get a really solid college bat. They get two super exciting, higher upside high school arms.
Yeah.
And then it's not like Braylon Payne is, a guy that should have went in the 5th round. Like, this is someone that they might have a late first round or early second round grade on him. They save a lot of money. I mean, they got a lot of talent in those first 4 picks, and it's not like they had to go college and cheap later on. Sure. But I think they did a good job of justifying the who is that pick?
Right.
With the first pick.
I also thought it was pretty interesting. They went with 2 guys that are Northern Illinois high school arms a little bit later on in that grouping at 10. Mm-hmm. They've got a Cary Grove arm that I saw. I'm pulling up their names right now. Ethan Dorches from Cary Grove High School, which is northern suburb of Chicagoland, which is pretty much Milwaukee's backyard. And then Griffin Tobias from Lake Central High School in Indiana. Like, that's also a very easy place to scout for Milwaukee. So I would say, based on just like narrative around, hey, you've got a high school arm that really nobody knows about, you can convince them to come. They probably got a lot of looks at those guys, had a lot of regional stuff.
And I'm looking at where they're grabbing them too, right? 9th, 10th round, right at the brink of where you're able to overslot them.
Yeah.
Again, those savings might be going there too, where they might be getting 5 really fun prep arms all of a sudden. So I like what the Brewers did. You always, even if you don't totally understand what the Brewers did in the draft, you got to wait it out because they've earned it.
Right, and sometimes Jacob Mizorowski happens.
Yeah,
like sometimes. All right, we jump to Minnesota here. Minnesota went Kalen Culpepper, the Kansas State shortstop, at 21. Then at 33 in the comp round, Kyle DeBarge. They got this because of Sonny Gray signing elsewhere. Kyle DeBarge, shortstop from Louisiana Lafayette. Then Billy Amick, the third baseman from Tennessee, 60th overall. 69th overall, they go high school for the first time, Grapevine High School, a powerhouse. They got a left-handed pitcher in Desan Hill. And then Kadeem Diao, the catcher from Loyola Marymount University, they went in the 3rd. They had 5 top 100 picks. I really liked their 4th-round pick, and Jaime Ferrer, the outfielder for Florida State. I think he's the guy that, like, people could get excited about when watching Tibbs and Smith. I turned on Florida State games. I was like, Tibbs and Smith, Tibbs and Smith, Tibbs and Smith. Oh, wait, who's this Jaime Ferrer cat? I think that might be a sneaky good pick for them in the 4th round, but I don't want to say it was chalky. They just went a lot of college bats to add to the stable.
And that seemed to be the word with them. Like, that just seemed to be one of the few confident guarantees in the draft were that the Twins were going to go college bat, and they tend to like to do that unless a Walker Jenkins, it slips right to you. So right. I do, and this was why we actually, one of the few that we got right on the mock on the back end too. Culpepper, high floor, great chance to stick on the left side of the infield. Yeah. Like, you're probably not getting an all-star here or perennial all-star, but I think they're probably felt like they're going to save some money here, and then they could get creative later on. They were able to swing for the fences a bit more later, but Culpepper, 60 arm, good defender. It could be an elite defender at 3rd. I think can be a solid defender at short, has a chance to stick there, and really hit his stride down the stretch. So I think that's somebody that they feel like they might be buying on the upswing here, and it's kind of the 50s across the board type of thing, which is a nice profile to have. DeBarge might have been a little bit of a money saver there. I'm going to be very interested to see what that bonus looks like because he was expected to go a little bit later, but he is fun. And I think he brings a lot of exciting things to the table, some fun tools. And I always like the Louisiana Lafayette. Like, there's always a fun Raging Cajun
The
coming there.
Raging Cajuns, yeah, fair.
So, and then Amick, I'm not the biggest fan of Amick because I think there's a lot of swing and miss, and I don't love the swing overall at this point. But it's hard to deny what he's done from a production standpoint. It's hard to deny the power, and I like him as the 60th pick.
Yeah,
I don't like him as a late first rounder, and that's where he was kind of expected to go. So I love getting him at 60, especially when Culpepper, that higher floor guy, DeBarge, another guy that does have a great chance to play a solid shortstop and a plus runner. Yeah. So you have two of those higher floor left side of the infield guys. Then you can swing for the fences a bit more with a big power, kind of big whiff, potential Amick. And then I know a lot of people were excited about Dazon Hill. Is it Dazon Hill or Dazon Hill?
I don't know. He's a Texas kid. Like Desan, you typically see like Desan Brown, right? But like it might be Dazon.
Dazon Hill?
Sure.
Well, we'll go with Dazon. 6'5". All right, 6'5" pitcher here. I mean, from the left side, Texas kid. I'm sure he's going to command an overslot, and that's a fun get for them too. So they got a little bit more creative on the back end, but it seems like just a safer, short-up draft that I think they just want an influx of talent here, and they balance it with enough upside.
We'd love that. All right, let's jump to the Mets here, and this was an excellent, excellent draft for the Mets. They got a slipper in the second in Jonathan Santucci in Duke, or the left-hander out of Duke, but they got a slipper in the first in the best way. Carson Benj went 19th overall, the outfielder from Oklahoma State. Probably going to a corner, right? But like a damn good in a corner. He can play center?
I think he can. Okay. He only has played a corner in college, to your credit there. Like, and I think it's that might be a reason why he slipped a little bit. Maybe some teams don't see him as much as a center fielder. I think he can. Okay. And that's why I liked him as a top 15 prospect in this class. I thought he'd go maybe to the Mariners. I thought he could go even to the Marlins. I thought he could go a little bit earlier than that. I think the Mets have to be thrilled that he slipped to them there. This is a super talented player. Yeah. I mean, this guy's a top 3-round prospect on the mound. Yeah. Missed his first season with Tommy John. So it was really his first year last year offensively, and he tore it up. Then this past season, he taps into more power and just absolutely tears it up again and finishes strong on the mound. I don't see a need to have him go two ways, but they're still letting, Nolan McLean do it. So we'll see if they want to do that. I am so excited about Benj because I see a guy that when we talked to Alec Burleson, we were talking about this on the draft stream. Yeah. When I talked to Alec Burleson a couple of years ago, I was like, do you feel like shifting the focus from the mound to just hitting? Do you feel like that's really helped you, kind of elevate as a hitter? He's like, yeah, of course, from a mental standpoint, but even more so from a physical standpoint. When you're a pitcher, you got to be careful with how much strength and just volume and mass you put on your upper body. You want to keep that fluidity and that range of mobility. But as an outfielder, as a hitter, you can really get beefed up. You can get stronger. And I mean, Bench is a wiry guy. Yeah. Like, he's not that filled out. So he fills out a little bit more. The EVs are already slightly above average. The contact rates are already plus.
Cool.
If he can play center, I'm pumped on that. Santucci slipped. He was expected to be a first-round pick early in the year. Then with the struggles that he had down the stretch, kind of started to look like a second-round pick. I thought he'd still be a sandwich pick. Surprised to see him slip to 46. I think if you're the Mets, you got to be happy to get a talented lefty, mid-90s. He's flashed the secondaries that just were very inconsistent for him this year. I think that 1-2 punch there at the top is really fun.
This feels like an all right, cool, nice.
Yes.
Like first two picks, like Carson Bench. All right, cool.
Nice.
He's here. Let's do it. Santucci. All right, cool. Let's do it. They also went Nate Dome, a pitcher out of Mississippi State, at the 82nd pick. Fourth round, they went Eli Serrano, an outfielder from NC State, at 111. Then Trey Snyder, high school shortstop, in the fifth round. I do want to shout out a pick that is coming in like in real time right now. 14th round, they went Tanner Witt, the right-hander from Texas, who is a first-round talent at a high school in 2020. Dad, big leaguer. I think TJ. I think like he's a senior, TJ, so that's why he, was falling like, an anchor to the bottom of the ocean, I guess, because this talent should never go in the 14th round. But, man, like, you're playing with funny money here, getting a senior.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was you talked about what he was kind of coming up as and what he could be. And even in the early stages of his collegiate career, we saw him more, 92, 93, 94. And then just injuries have just derailed him.
Yeah.
He barely threw in 2022. I think we only saw him make 2 starts then, missed time then. And he was great in those 2 starts.
Yeah.
And then 2023, banged up again, barely threw in the regular season, threw a little bit on the Cape. And then this year, barely threw again, injury. So they're hoping that they can get him right and get him healthy, but the talent really isn't the question here. So that is a fun pick to mix in there. And then one other name, there might be some other guys of intrigue that I'm just not as tapped into that I'm going to do more catch up on. But Nate Dome, is it Dome?
I guess. Why not?
Nate Dome. Some good data there, some fun pitch data, some interesting things across the board there that I think could make him a fun arm and a nice sneaky get there in the 3rd round.
Cool. Let's go to the other borough in the Bronx. The New York Yankees went Ben Hess, the Alabama right-hander, 26th overall. 1st round, pitcher. 2nd round, college pitcher. 2nd round, college pitcher. 3rd round, college pitcher. 4th round, college pitcher. 5th round, college pitcher. 6th round, college pitcher. 7th round, college pitcher. Brian Cashman, take a bow, man. You had a plan of attack and you executed. Thatcher Hurd is a name that jumps out here in the 3rd round from LSU. Hurd started his career, I do believe, at UCLA. And, this guy's had talent out the wazoo since he got on a college campus. Injuries have hurt him. This guy was Skeens' roommate at LSU. Chances are he got a little bit of something through osmosis. Fun grab after Ben Hess, who's a big boy that can really rip it.
And the new structure of the draft, having it being in July now, Thatcher Hurd had an opportunity to show out on the Cape a little bit,
really?
and had a really good final outing there that I think the Yankees had scouts there that may have kind of endeared himself to them. 6 innings on the Cape where he goes 1 hit. It was a solo shot, 1 walk, 6 Ks. He was sitting 93 with the fastball. We've seen him sit 95.
Yeah.
And through the season, he was sitting 95 in shorter spurts. He threw 70 pitches in this outing, though, and he didn't do that a ton through the second half of the year. Hurd was a guy that had some first-round intrigue, earlier in his collegiate career, and is a fun get for them because I think when you look at what the Yankees have been able to do with these 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round arms, Chase Hampton in the 6th round, Will Warren, where they don't have these guys debut professionally, they have them go into their pitching program.
Right.
They put them in the lab, and the proof of concept's been there. And Thorpe is another one there too, where the guy usually has one great pitch, and they say, oh, he's a pronator, oh, he's a supinator. They seem to have as much success as anybody at making the pronators supinate and the supinators pronate or find something that works for them. And that's why I think they're leaning into that now and saying, hey, 4 of these arms could be trade pieces if we can up them a little bit and maximize them. And I think they wanted to spray the board more because Ben Hess kind of screams reliever to me. It's a fastball that characteristically is most similar to Jeff Hoffman, which is a great fastball.
Awesome.
It's
All-star
ride.
fastball.
Yeah, it's a great heater. But there's not much else from there. The delivery kind of screams reliever too. But I think that they see him maybe as a guy that they could fast track that way and then spray the board with money the rest of the way. Bryce Cunningham's probably not going to come too cheap. Thatcher Hurd's probably not going to come too cheap. Gage Zeal's definitely not going to be an underslot guy. So I think they're able to kind of spray the board that way, and they're going to be able to try to maximize each of them. Cunningham, I like because he is that pronator, and he has a disgusting changeup that was a weapon for him this year. Opponents hit about $150. So you find something a little bit more with the breaking ball. He sat 95.
Wow.
I mean, they got some really fun arms here. It was an interesting approach, but I think if you're going to do it this way, I think they executed it really well.
And notice they went big boys too, right? Ben Hess, big man, and then Cunningham, I think big man as well.
Yes.
So
which is fun. And then I don't have a ton on Gage Zeal. That's a guy that I'll have to just keep digging more on, which is funny because University of Miami guy. But I told you, University of Miami, I grew up a big UM fan except for baseball because it ended up being really disappointing through the years. And then a lot of guys that I played against in the summer circuit or in South Florida that I'm like, screw those guys.
Right.
They beat us.
Suck.
They knocked us out of district playoffs. Like, screw those guys.
Right.
So I didn't root for them nearly as hard, but his slider grades out extremely well.
Gotcha.
And so, okay, this is a supinator. Let's see if we can get him to pronator. Let's see if we can get something to work with the fastball a little bit more. It's a fun project.
Yeah. Oakland. Oakland. Nick Kurtz, 4th overall, the Wake Forest first baseman, went earlier than anybody was expecting him to go. Oakland takes him. Then at 40, they take Tommy White, who slid to 40, the LSU third baseman. Then Gage Jump, the left-hander with the draft-eligible sophomore out of LSU. Joshua Kuroda-Grauer, the shortstop out of Rutgers. And then they went Cal Berkeley outfielder Rodney Green in the 4th. College heavy. They went with a Canadian high school guy, Mayfield Secondary School, Josiah Romeo in the 6th round. He's an arm. Aside from that, position player heavy with the exception of Jump. Jump is an interesting one. I don't know how I feel about him in terms of being like an MLB starter, but the first 2 picks are fascinating. I don't know how to ingest it at all. Like, frankly, I'm a little confused on the overall opinion.
Yeah, so, I mean, there seemed to be a discussion about them going underslot at 4, and, you know, of course, Montgomery would be a name. Kurtz would be a name, but you just figure, why? With the way that things were shaking out? Weatherholt would make a lot of sense. A lot of names would have made sense there. I thought Cags would be.
Yeah.
We mocked Cags there.
Yeah.
That said, I don't hate it because I like Nick Kurtz.
Okay, so what you're doing right now is telling me that you have no idea how to ingest this draft either. I've got no idea what my opinion is on this draft.
Well, and here's the thing: like we were a little critical of the Jacob Wilson pick.
Yeah.
And
it worked.
And we'll see how like Echeverria pans out and some of the other guys,
right.
but.
Miles Naylor, yeah.
Miles Naylor, but Naylor looks intriguing. From what I've been able to see so far, some of the games I've watched, like he's definitely worth the pick, the oversaw, and take a chance there. So, like, I get it. It was surprising. And I think the Tommy White pick after that was what really got me like off guard because Tommy White, he's going to need to tweak some things. There's freakish hands, and that's the really fun part is like you can't really teach that twitch with the bat speed, the hands, and we've seen him tap into the power in games, but it just kind of was a little bit of an arrow downwards as his collegiate career progressed. Part of that is an indictment, and not an indictment on him as much as how high he set the bar for himself with the way he started his collegiate career at NC State as Tommy Tanks. But you go first baseman, and then Jump, I do like as a high floor arm. I agree with you. Like, what is it going to look like as a starter long term? Fastball is fantastic. It's a bunch of whiff with that. But does he have the secondaries that are going to play, or is that just a guy that they felt like, okay, we'll fast track him there? I think they found their Jacob Wilson light.
Okay. With
Josh Kuroda-Grauer. Okay. I hope I said that right. He ran a zone contact rate over 94% this year.
In the Big Ten?
The Big Ten.
Which is more impressive than, what's that conference called?
The
WAC? Yeah, the Western Athletic Conference.
Definitely more impressive than the WAC. That's not to say he's better than Jacob Gonzalez. Jacob Gonzalez is a monster right now, and clearly like he did it also on the big stage and other spots, but they clearly have found their hit tool guy. They love to find that hit tool guy. Some of the best bat to ball in the entire country this past season. So that is an intriguing grab for them. Of course, it's going to come with major power questions, but his EVs were slightly higher than Jacob Wilson's, but at the same time, they also are with hotter bats or balls, whatever it was this year. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what it looks like for him, but if he can be this kind of watered-down version, that's a nice get later on. I think he's not going to be as dynamic, of course, but he's a guy that might be able to play a little bit more shortstop too. Rodney Green was another guy that had a lot of intrigue as well.
Really?
Data darling, but just – it was kind of this incomplete profile where you were hoping that things would come together. The EVs were there, and then it just didn't quite come together totally for him. But, that's a shot I'd love to take later in the draft. And a guy with those tools, with what he brings to the table, like I think it's a fun draft overall. I think they did some intriguing things, but I like that they kind of go both ends of the spectrum too. Like we were talking about with the Orioles, it's not quite to that degree, but they'll take a chance on a guy that kind of whiffs a little bit and is tooled up later on. But it seems like for the most part, they do like that hit tool and build from there. And then Kurtz is kind of that combination of both, so I can understand why they love him.
Yeah, I think the thing that just kind of threw me for a loop was, and I mentioned this on the Just Baseball show, I also mentioned it on the live stream that went so well. Thank you guys again for joining us on that if you were hanging out with us on Sunday night. But they already have Soderstrom. They already have Langoliers. Like, these are guys that are catcher, first baseman, right? Langoliers looks like the catcher of the future.
Yeah.
But then Soderstrom should be the first baseman of the future. You have a DH in Brent Rooker. I don't know what their plan is there. You had a Rule 5 pick that worked out really well in 23 and is working his way back to the big leagues in Noda, who, started 24 there. And now you added first base.
Yeah.
there's a lot of first basemen and DHs in Oakland right now. And I just didn't really understand that with your 2 top 50 picks that you had.
I got it with Kurtz because it's okay, if you think he's 30 and 30 and hitting 280, 30 home runs and hitting 280, great.
But
who cares what your big league situation?
Follow it with an outfielder.
Exactly. That's where it's okay.
Right.
Tommy White, I mean, I don't know. I probably would have wanted someone that's a little bit more versatile defensively, but they might feel like there's a lot of untapped potential here, and they might have felt at 40. No chance he was going to fall to him there. He's the best player available. If they felt that way, I can see it. I can understand the upside. So I wouldn't say it's a bad or good draft or anything. It's a wait and see and interesting, and I appreciate their creativity. But I do like the mixture here where you have a Rodney Green and Kuroda Grauer back-to-back that couldn't be more different.
Right.
And maybe one of them works out.
Yep. Jump into Philly here. Very much a surprise. A Canadian outfielder from Northville High School in Michigan. I haven't looked. That might be Upper Peninsula in Michigan. But Dante Nori goes 27th overall to Philly. He was their first-round pick, left-handed hitting outfielder. Then Griffin Burkholder, high school outfielder, righty hitting from Freedom High School in Virginia. He went 63rd. They pick again at 100, and they start to go college. College shortstop and John Spikerman out of Oklahoma. Carson DiMartini, who has put up numbers on numbers on numbers at Virginia Tech. Another college shortstop at 130. And then in the 5th round, they go with an outfielder out of IU, Carter Matheson, who packs a freaking punch, man. They got juice in Carter Matheson. So they go high school first 2 picks, then college next 3, and their first, 7 picks of this draft were position players. I think they feel very comfortable with what they have pitching-wise. Extending Wheeler, extending Nola, having Painter on the way, whatever you get from Abel and McGarry at this point. You have Aldegari working his way through. You have Klassen working their way through. They found things in budget guys, whether it's middle to later round draft picks or even IFA guys. They added to their hitter stable here.
Yeah, and I think they're probably feeling good. They clearly have been able to identify arms later on in the draft, and I think they might have done that with Marcus Morgan out of Iowa in the 9th round. So I think they felt like if there's a draft where you can maybe eat a little bit more later on with some sneaky arms, this is probably the one. And if you like bats at the top, grab them while you can because it drops off very quickly. Dante Nori was interesting because we didn't really have much on him going in. Not expected to be a first-round pick. Guy's a muscle hamster. Yeah. He's 5'9", quads. I'd say best quads in the draft.
Yeah, best quads in the draft. We said he looks a lot like our YouTube guy, Ben Bellotti.
He looks a lot like our Quadzilla YouTube extraordinaire, Ben Bellotti, which I love. But this is another team that was pretty limited from a bonus pool perspective, so you have to take that into account. Yep. And it seems like, I think you identified the theme here. They chased EVs after Nori. Nori seems like that kind of complete guy, but he does put up some EVs. But then, you look at what they were kind of doing beyond that. DiMartini, you mentioned putting up the big numbers. He does. A lot of whiff, though. And that's the only reason why he was available later on because the track record's hard to deny. But the EVs are there. The production was there. The approach is pretty good. If you can cut down on some whiff there, all of a sudden, you might have a piece. But I thought it was a really interesting draft overall. And then they go with another high school guy that is just kind of tools and see what happens in Griffin Burkholder, where that's more run over the power. But I think it's just tools and risky, and let's see what happens because it's kind of a profile in an area where there's not a ton of track record. But I think it's fun. I think it was a very fun draft. The toolsy Northeast cold weather guys are very risky profile. Sure. But when you have a limited amount of money to work with here, I'd imagine that the Nori savings, they must love Burkholder. And whenever I see a guy that is plus run and has above average power potential, you're like, okay, they must believe that the hit can come along. And if they believe that, that might be where those savings went. And I think some of the savings are going to go to DiMartini and then some of these later arms as well that, I have a lot of faith in their ability to scout and pick up these arms. And I think that's one of the most underrated things about Dombrowski is, yes, he can tear down a farm system, but he can build one up too. And he's good at identifying some of these later round guys.
And you got to build it up in order to tear it down. So,
exactly.
Important note there on the Dave Dombrowski and AJ Preller trains and Jerry DiPoto as well too. You have to build it up in order to tear it down. We'll move to Pittsburgh here. Homework, though. Go check out some of Carter Matheson's swings. I think you're really going to like it. Pittsburgh, they went Connor Griffin at 9. Connor Griffin, who was number 2, I guess. Like, it was kind of 1A, 1B with the prep guys with Rayner and Connor Griffin, but Griffin was probably 1B, the shortstop / center fielder from Jackson Prep in Mississippi. Then 37th overall, they go Levi Sterling, a high school pitcher out of Notre Dame High School in California. They go high school again with Wyatt Sanford in the 2nd. Then in the 3rd, lefty out of Wake, Josh Hartle. Eddie Reinders from Wisconsin Lutheran, shortstop in the 4th. And then Will Taylor, the outfielder out of Clemson in the 5th round. They kept on going with a good bit of pitching and a lot of high school guys at the top, which was interesting. But I think they added who they deemed to be maybe the toolsiest young player, toolsiest young hitter on the board.
I'd say 5-tool gets thrown out too much.
But
right? This is a guy that has the 5-tool potential.
5-tool potential, and the one that has the biggest question mark is the most important one.
Yes, the hit.
Yes.
And that's the only reason why he's not the top 3 pick in this class. Maybe even a 1-1 candidate.
Right.
If Connor Griffin has an average hit tool, or you have a high confidence interval and an average hit tool, how do you not take that guy among the top of the class?
No, especially when you had questions. Right, like Bizana would still absolutely be the best player in the class, but at 2, I'm not sure the Reds were convinced in what they were doing. So if Connor Griffin did have that hit tool, or at least made you sleep a little sounder at night, he would absolutely be that type of talent.
I mean, when I describe everything else, it's like, why wasn't this guy drafted earlier? Still 9, but right. We're talking about plus power, 70 run times, guy who stole 85 bags this year in high school in 43 games. Mm-hmm. We're talking about either good or very good defense at short or potentially elite defense in center field. And he's got more room to add onto his frame, so he could grow into even more power. It really is just the hit tool. And the problem is that is, like you said, the biggest question. Elijah Green is a lot of the same things too, where everything else is great, but he's not hitting the ball. I think his swing is further along than Elijah Green's was, but I do have some concerns with the swing. It does lack some fluidity. He does get very long to the ball, and it seems like he's fighting his body at times to try to get the barrel in the right position because he's so big.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he also has the fallback on the mound. If all went terrible, he's mid-90s on the mound, and that they love athletes, and that's another theme here too. They'll always make sure they get a couple athletes. You got as high the upside, other than Cags off, and that's just offensively, but all around, I think Connor Griffin has as much upside as anybody in this class.
Yeah. Jumping to San Diego.
Oh, sorry, actually, I have a couple more things real quick I wanted to add. Hartle, another guy that was a first-round candidate.
Yes.
He was kind of brutal through parts of this year, but he's still a lefty pitchability guy who, in this organization, they've started to be pretty effective. Hunter Barco is kind of a similar conversation for different reasons, but Barco, where it was the stuff was subdued, they're patient, kind of fell into their lap. It's a different story here, but subdued a little bit more than what we were hoping. The velo kind of went back for him, and the stuff just wasn't playing as well. Hartle's a guy that has looked really good through stretches. Will Taylor is that football player, athlete that they get in the 5th round that is fun as well. But I like the mixture of what they did here, and I like going with, if you're going to swing for the fences, go 3 prep guys in a row. And I think Sanford was a guy that could have been considered late in the 1st round, has a lot of intrigue as well. You went with upside in this draft if you're the Pirates, and you know what? I like it. And guys that have great defensive value too, which I thought was an interesting wrinkle.
So Sanford went to Independence High School in Texas.
Yeah.
I think I was thinking who else went to Independence High School?
I've seen it before.
I think Robert Hassel went to Independence in Nashville.
Okay.
So I think it's a different Independence High School, but that's the name that jumped out to me. But yeah, overall, it just seemed like a very athletic draft from the Pirates, and again, they've proven at this point they've gotten the benefit of the doubt, much like Milwaukee. It's you give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to cook in the later rounds. The Pirates, if they're taking an arm, I give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be at least a trade chip.
I think they're really good at allocating bonus pool money and being creative with the draft, where I think what's lacking is kind of the development side.
Yeah.
And if they can continue to build on that, then I'll feel a lot more excited about this.
And they're doing well with identification.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's clear. So, all right, we'll jump to San Diego now. And San Diego, same old, same old. Cash Mayfield, left-hander out of Elk City High School in Oklahoma. They go with another left-handed high school pitcher in the 2nd round in Boston Bateman. Then Cobb Hightower, high school shortstop out of North Carolina, was their final pick in the top 100. Then the 4th round, 118, Tyson Neighbors, right-hander out of Kansas State. And then Kavaris Tears in the 4th as well, 134th overall pick, outfielder out of Tennessee. And then Tom Candiotti's kid, Clark Candiotti, who is at 4 schools in 5 years, 5th-year guy, goes 135th overall, runs it up to 97. Doesn't throw the knuckleball like Tom Candiotti, but the Arizona right-hander. It just kind of seems like another classic A.J. Preller draft, and Cash Mayfield is going to join Snelling and Lesko, and again, whoever you want to talk about when it comes to high school pitchers.
What I told you, like when it comes to the mock drafts or trying to figure out who the Padres are going to draft, I usually just pick my favorite swing mechanically or my favorite delivery. And usually there's a good chance that they either consider them or they end up taking them. I went with Slade Caldwell here in the mock draft because that's one of my favorite swings in the class. But also when it comes to delivery and in terms of just one of the smoother mechanical guys in this class, Cash Mayfield. Yeah. It is just so satisfying. It's a low effort. A lefty that's 6'4", to be that smooth and repeatable with his delivery, it just fits the bill of what the Padres love to identify too. And it's kind of cut from that Snelling cloth with a bigger body and I think even more projection potential.
And it's the pace of Boz, which never really makes much sense to me. Like, how does 99 come out of that pace? How do the pitches in Mayfield's arsenal come out of that pace of delivery? And, like, I don't think there's a rhyme or reason. I don't think that's why Boz got hurt. I think that he is as mechanically sound an arm as like you've got in this draft, college or high school.
And I think it's an important point because Mayfield also saw a big uptick in the last year while still having that very low effort, smooth delivery. I love Kavaris Tears in terms of there's some swing and miss, and that's why he slipped. But to get him there, I was surprised he wasn't more highly regarded. We saw him produce down the stretch for Tennessee for sure. But this guy ran a 90th percentile exit velocity, they're right around 109 miles an hour. Wow. You could see that swing from the left side. Like, that's a sweet, powerful swing. Yeah. He can motor. There's a chance he could stick in center. Like, that's a fun get in the 4th round. And then Tyson Neighbors is a fun arm too. Like, he's got some interesting stuff. So, I mean, given how limited they were also financially, I thought it was a really sound draft, and you know that they're always going to do that.
Padres going to Padre. All right, we are going to wrap up, starting with San Francisco. We got San Fran, Seattle, St. Louis, Tampa, Texas, Toronto, and Washington. But before that,
Before the break.
Oh, before that.
Sorry, this is the only episode I'm going to keep doing that.
No,
one more thing.
You're good.
Boston Bateman, 6'8".
Cool.
6'8" lefty. Like, fills up the zone a decent amount. Throws strikes, like, banger curveball.
He's 240?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to say Bateman, interesting. Maybe this might be how did the Padres get him in the 2nd round guy? We'll do more digging, and I'll have more on Bateman sooner.
I'm in on that. All right, now we'll take that break. All right, San Francisco. Pickings were slim here. 13th overall, they take James Tibbs III, the outfielder slash first baseman, probably an outfielder out of Florida State. Again, Tibbs, the ACC Player of the Year. As fun a watch as there was in college baseball. I'm very excited for that. Dakota Jordan in the 4th. They had the 13th pick and then the 116th pick. Again, Pickens were slim. Then Jacob Christian, an outfielder out of the University of San Diego. And then Robert Hipwell out of Santa Clara, 3rd baseman, muscle hamster, 178th overall. There wasn't much, I would say, top-end talent to be available here for San Francisco. The joke is they took the platoon with their first 2 picks, but Tibbs, man, hell of a hitter. I'm excited to see him make his way through San Francisco's system.
And I think he's going to do it relatively quickly. This guy, I don't think he has much need to face lefties ever. And the Giants love to platoon as much as anybody, but it's like, a platoon guy in the 1st round. You'd be surprised how many guys in the big leagues probably should be platooned and aren't, and it's just teams kind of leaving some meat on the bone when you could have a lefty masher working with him.
Lamont Wade is one of the more underappreciated players in all of baseball.
100%. And I think what Tibbs did to right-handed pitching this year is outrageous. OPS well over 1,000. He hit roughly 500 against right-handed fastballs. He found something in terms of the rhythm in his swing, getting into that back hip, but in a smooth, repeatable, and timed-up way that has really allowed him to be on time and adjustable, especially for righties. His mechanics would break down against lefties, but the Giants identify that and say, okay, great, let people sleep on him a little bit there, and we'll grab him at 13, and he's going to be a guy that mashes righties and plays a big role for us there, and I do think he's good enough in a corner, though some evaluators say first base. I think he can fend that off. the joke is, like him and Dakota Jordan can travel as a platoon together because,
Right.
I mean, Jordan, it's like first percentile in terms of contact rate in college baseball
And
this
it's
year.
like 100th percentile in terms of EPA.
Yeah, it's off the charts,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't have a lot of picks in a draft and you got to wait like a day basically to make your next pick, I understand trying it. Jordan's just a guy that it's frustrating because it's plus speed, but he doesn't play great defense or steal bags. It's off the charts power, but he doesn't hit the ball enough. So it's a project here.
Yeah.
And I just hope it's not a Josh Mears type of project and it trends a little bit more the other way. In the third round, I'll take a guy that has the potential to hit 30-plus homers and turns in plus run times. Fourth round, excuse me.
Fourth round. Yeah. Also, noticing a trend here. We're through round 15, taking all but one college guy. They've taken one high school guy.
That's crazy.
It's all college.
That is
for
interesting.
San Francisco.
Hipwell is kind of contact-oriented, really good approach. So that's a more higher floor guy. And then Jacob Christian, it's bat first. He's a big guy, 6'5". Swings and misses, fair amount, but you got decent EVs there and some physical projection. So, they just went college and stockpiled those bats, and we'll see how it goes.
Team of the draft, the Seattle Mariners. Jurangelo Cijntje, 15th, the switch pitcher from Mississippi State. Then Ryan Sloan, who according to our guy MILB Central is signing for $3 million. Slot value of this 55th overall pick is 1.64. He's going to about double slots. Cijntje is going to be a big-time discount. Then they go Hunter Crinton, a pitcher out of Kansas in the third round. Fourth round, Josh Caron, catcher from Nebraska. And then Charlie Beilenson, a pitcher from Duke as well. They went a lot of college guys, but they got one of the best pitchers in the prep class in Ryan Sloan. They needed a steep price tag to sign him away from Wake Forest. We talked about that. But, man, this is a big guy, throws hard, so ridiculously consistent with his delivery. They got two top 10 prospects in their system now with Cijntje and Sloan.
In a pretty good
system. In a good system. In a system that, like, it was the top 10, then a big drop-off. Like, they just kind of expanded that, like, list of blue-chip prospects in the Mariners system from 10 to a dozen.
Here's their two best pitching prospects, too. Right? I mean,
Logan Evans?
Yeah, Logan Evans maybe gets the edge. I like the upside that these guys possess, too. Remember, Durangelo's been throwing for a year and a half, essentially, really focusing on pitching. The switch pitching aspect is fun. As a righty, he's got mid-rotation upside. As a lefty, it's more kind of like reliever or swingman type. So I wonder what they're going to do there. But what I love about Durangelo is he fits the bill of exactly what the Mariners like to look for.
Yeah.
It's a low-release, high-carry fastball. And the fact that this guy, given how raw he is as a pitcher in terms of experience, not looking raw at all in terms of what you actually see on the mound, you can't help but dream on what this could progress to as he just gets more experience in an organization that has done a great job with these types. You think of the Bryce Millers, you think of the Brian Woos, the low release, high carry. But the fact that he has a better combination of secondaries than either of those guys had, especially at this stage, where the slider he landed for a strike from the right side 70% of the time, the curveball 65% of the time. He flashed a pretty good changeup. Like, this was a really good pick here, and a guy that was a top 25 draft prospect for us. And then Sloan, this was the top right-hander in the prep class. And so they're able to get a guy that, some people might be thinking, oh, what about Savage? Savage, much higher floor, and I think clearly was the third best arm in the class. But Durangelo has a higher ceiling. They might feel pretty good about the floor given the strikes that he can throw in the release profile of the fastball that's clearly going to play. And now you get Sloan, who is a top 25 prospect in this class as well, the best prep right-hander, who I love his delivery, and I love what
beautiful.
he can do. It is clean, and he fills up the zone more than you'd expect from a 6'5", 220 right-hander. Like, they got two impact arms, and they needed pitching and throughout that system. I mean, you got to be thrilled with those two if you're a Mariners fan.
It's pretty cool to, like, you think about what Jurangelo could be doing at the major league level with the switch pitching thing, because you mentioned, like, possible reliever from the left side. I'm thinking it's not like, a 50-50 or a 66-33 split when it comes to using the left against right-handed pitching, or against right-handed hitting, I should say. I think if there is a or left-handed hitting, that's right. I was just kind of like confused there, but like he would go right on right and then left on left. If there is a lefty in a lineup that absolutely cannot handle same-handed matchups, do that. But if there's a lefty that can, like, not really a splits guy, just stay on the right side. Just do that. So, like, if he was 90% right-handed and then 10% to the guys that just cannot handle lefties, you flip the glove around and do that, I think that's an unbelievable thing to have in the back pocket.
If Sane just facing James Tibbs.
Right, like, dude.
James Tibbs is like the best hitter on the planet against righties.
Right.
Like, lefties, he breaks down. Right. So, like, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer.
Flip the glove around, spin him 3 times, and it's like, okay, good night, and then you go back to the right side. Like, I think that this can be situationally deployed in an incredible way.
Especially if he can just get it to the point where it's like, just be a fastball slider from the left side.
Yeah.
And he can drop down the arm angle, whatever, find it there. Just make it a splits nightmare where left on left is just not comfortable. You don't have to worry about righties. So you can really be that lefty specialist that has disappeared from the game from that left side. So maybe that's a reason to keep it going. And then Josh Karen, a guy that they get from Nebraska here, dismantled fastballs this year. Dismantled. OPS well over 1,000 against heaters. Has a decent chance to stick behind the dish. They wanted some catching depth in that system behind Harry Ford. I guess they get that. So not a bad get there either. And then Hunter Cranon is a fun arm as well. So I think you got to look at what they did here. On top of what they did at the top, I think it's all about those first 2 picks for sure. But nothing to completely overlook later on. I think Cranton's a guy you probably fast track more as a reliever. Fastball averaged 97 when we did see him on the mound this year. And yeah, I mean, averaging 97, fast track him as a reliever. You get a guy that could be a catcher as well. I think they did really well of balancing the fun at the top and then a little bit of intrigue later. But also, they get Christian Little in the 11th round.
Yeah, they do, which is interesting. And I know that this guy's kind of had a loaded college career, but it was what, Vandy to LSU or LSU to Vandy? I think it was Vandy to LSU. He came as a starter, then was a reliever and a good one. He could run it up to 98, 99 miles an hour. I'm very curious to see how they want to attack Christian Little's development through the minor leagues. He could absolutely be a reliever.
Yeah, and I think it's just a fun try.
It's a good try.
This is a guy that you look at his body, look at the athleticism.
It's like, holy
as a freshman,
shit.
we were hoping he could
First team all eye test.
Yeah, we were hoping he could turn into like a dude.
Yeah.
And he's used mostly as a reliever, but like you said, sitting in the upper 90s, started to get a little bit better as the year progressed, and started to look pretty nasty down the stretch. I think that could be another solid relief piece for him.
If there's anybody I trust with him, it's the Seattle Mariners. Okay, let's jump to St. Louis here. No-brainer of a pick. Number 7 overall, J.J. Weatherholt, the West Virginia middle infielder, shortstop, second baseman, wherever you put him, he's going to hit. Weatherholt goes to them at 7. 80th overall in the 3rd round, they take Brian Holiday, no relation to... what's the dad's name? Not Tom. Tom is part of the Holiday family, but no relation to Matt or the brother that's the head coach at Oklahoma State, or Tom, or Jackson, or Ethan. But Brian Holiday, the pitcher from Oklahoma State in the 3rd round. 4th round, Ryan Campos, catcher out of Arizona State. Braden Davis, a pitcher out of Oklahoma, in the 5th round. And then in the 6th round, catcher from Cincinnati, Josh Cross. Andrew Dukanich, the arm from Vandy, is an interesting one to me at 7. This was an Indiana high school kid that is a lank machine. Like, the limbs never end. Question is command, I think. If St. Louis can somehow manage to wrangle that in and find consistency with the delivery, he's got the stuff, certainly. But Weatherholt, this was like easiest, no notes, this is awesome type pick.
I mean... We were just talking about in the mock draft. We're like, okay, maybe they swing for the fences with a Bryce Rayner because you just rarely see the Cardinals pick in the top 10.
Right.
The fact that they get a J.J. Weatherholt falling to them at 7, I mean, they never picked this early, 1. Right. And then 2, you rarely see a player like J.J. Weatherholt, kind of slip, especially in a draft like this where he's just so well-rounded, the power, the hit, the speed, has a chance to play short. I mean, this is exactly the type of player that the Cardinals will have too. I mean, they must have been jumping for joy when he slipped to 7. Yeah. Holiday, what's funny too is, we talked about what they were able to do with Quinn Matthews and the uptick in velocity. Matthews is a much bigger guy and obviously much more projectable. But the funny thing about Quinn Matthews was he has that 156 pitch outing. Yeah. And we're like, oh my gosh. And how does he come back from that? Does he need like a year off after how much they use him?
Right.
Brian Holiday's last outing in his collegiate career. It's just funny they drafted him by the Cardinals. 131 pitches against the University of Florida, which came 7 days after throwing 113 pitches against Central Florida, which came 6 days after throwing 109 pitches against Oklahoma State. Maybe they see these guys and they're like, well, if you can handle throwing 130 pitches, if we give you a normal workload
Right.
and
You're
get you
gonna
on
be
the
fine.
right weight program, we can actually find an uptick in velocity. Because the fact that you held your velocity at 131 pitches, he averaged 93 in those 130 pitches. By the way, against the Gators there in that outing, 9 innings, 2 hits, 1 run on a solo shot, 1 walk, 10 Ks. So Holiday might be another one of those sneaky gets. Now, again, I don't think it's going to be Quinn Matthews-esque, but I think it can be a sneaky get for them there. Fastball slider combination that's pretty good. Maybe you could see an uptick there. And then Campos, another one of those just kind of like second college tier catchers that you can always grab in the middle rounds.
Yep. All right, we jump to Tampa here, and this trend was pretty fascinating. They went Theo Gillen in the first round, 18th overall, then 58th overall, Emilian Petrie out of Kentucky, the second baseman who was one of the better hitters in college baseball this year. Tyler Bell, shortstop from Lincoln Way East High School in the Chicagoland area, went in the competitive balance round B, so that's 66th overall, and their final top 100 pick was Nathan Flewilling, who is a Canadian high school catcher. So they go position player with the front 4 picks. 3 of the front 4 were high school position players. And then there was a stretch of 8 straight rounds where they went college pitcher. High school bat, college bat, high school bat, high school bat, college pitcher the next 8.
Yeah.
Tampa stockpiles.
Yeah, and I mean, if they're drafting college arms, they're all probably super weird. I'll have to dive deeper into all of their release points and what that all looks like. But that was another one that we mocked correctly because Theo Gillen just fits the bill of exactly what the Rays would want, which is upside prepster that you can dream on so much, but there's some sort of drawback. Usually it's hit tool that's a concern. With Gillen, it's actually not. It's injuries. He had a labrum surgery with his throwing arm as a sophomore. Then he had a knee issue that took out a lot of time as a junior. So he missed a lot of reps and just missed opportunity to just show himself to scouts. But this is a silky smooth swing from the left side. He is really good defensively at shortstop. The only question is the arm strength going to come back? He's still fringy there. So hopefully they can get him back from that labrum issue and just kind of get that arm strength back. But I love what he brings to the table as a guy that could play either an elite second base, find the arm strength and play a good shortstop, or move to center. It's above average to plus hit. I think above average power potential as he fills out. He's a plus runner. Like I really like him. I think he's a top 15 or so, maybe just a little bit later. Definitely top 20 guy in this class. I know the Rays are thrilled to get. And then with Petrie, you think they saved money on that pick? Like I think Gillen probably doesn't come too cheap. Like I don't know if they're going to save money there. Like I'm curious where like the big spend maybe comes from them there, or maybe it's just an even spread across the board.
I feel like they might just like be chalky with the slot money, which is fine. Like it's totally an okay thing. You don't have to make this a math problem.
Yeah.
Like you can just slot.
You don't need to flex your creativity muscles, but from a data perspective, Petrie, like it's above average contact rates. It's I think slightly above average, or at least average. Exit velocities.
Yeah.
It's just a really solid player. They loved Braden Taylor for like similar reasons, and I think there's some similarities there in the offensive profile. Very patient approach too, which helps his case. It's just the Rays, they're creative and fun with it, but I thought this was kind of one of the more tame drafts that we've seen from them, which isn't a good or bad thing. It's just usually they're a little bit more out there and there's a little bit more tool chasing. I don't know if they did that as much in this draft, which may have just been more of a testament to the draft itself than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, just a note, quite frankly. All right, we go to Texas here. The team that was drafting at their place at Cowtown Coliseum in Fort Worth.
Is that what that was called?
It was called Cowtown something, but very rodeo themed. They took Stanford catcher Malcolm Moore with the 30th overall pick. That was their pick of the first. 65th overall, their pick of the second was Dylan Dreiling, the College World Series most outstanding player. Then Casey Cook, another North Carolina outfielder, shared the outfield with Vance Honeycutt. Then West Virginia pitcher David Hageman, and then Devin Fitzgerald, Stoneman Douglas shortstop. So high school shortstop taken in the 5th round, a switch hitter. So they go college bats with each of their first 3 picks, all hit from the left side. They wanted bats to add. They also grabbed Anthony Susak from Arizona, the pitcher, in the 8th round. They grab a bat from Lehigh as well in the 7th. They were very college heavy. I don't know really what the Rangers have in terms of like farm system identity at this point, because Langford and Carter were 2 top 10 prospects in baseball, 2 arguably top 5 prospects in baseball in the same one. Now they're both kind of making their way through their rookie year. And it's, okay, Kumar Rocker, how's he going to look when he comes back? Jack Leiter, how's he going to really stick in the big leagues? There were a couple other guys. Brock Porter. It's like Brock Porter's
it's been rough for him.
It's been rough for him. The Rangers are kind of ticking down, seeming like a bottom third farm system in baseball. I think they would be in the 20s. So it seems like we're just trying to add college guys to kind of speed up the process and bolster their high A and double A teams.
No doubt. And I mean, you got Walcott at the top that you're really hoping can
For
bolster
sure.
that. But to your point, like it gets thin quick.
Very.
I think Jose Cornillo was kind of the guy that I was hoping would take a leap forward this year. I'm pretty sure ended up missing time and is hurt. Rocker, we're hoping to see him throw a little bit more, as the season progresses and get back. But like Abimelec Ortiz, like it was kind of that fever dream power.
Dude, Foskew's been there forever.
Foskew's just I'm like it's like Norby-ish.
Yeah,
it's just
kind
it's
of
kind of more.
It's
It's almost more than Norby.
Yeah.
So and Gutierrez is just kind of flattened out. Yeah, they just need pieces.
Yeah.
And I just think they need guys that you can look at and say, okay, I can project a big league role there. I don't need certain things to happen in a row here for this guy to make his way to the big leagues. And they seem to go with that higher four. That said, like Malcolm Moore is that higher four guy, I think, where it's above average hit to potentially a little bit better than that. The power came along to where it can be average, and the defense has come along to where he can at least have a decent chance of sticking there and being an average catcher. So that plays well. That's a guy that should be late first round, early second round pick. Dryling's the fun one for me because that is a little bit more spice here. Where you mentioned what he did in the College World Series, doing that on the big stage. This guy elevates with the best of them. I mean, it's a 30% ground ball rate. The EVs being above average, the contact rates being about average, slightly better, the approach being good. It's a nice swing from the left side. I liked this pick here. I thought that was a fun addition on top of the more safe guy on the other end. And then it was kind of back to safe again with Casey Cook, to your point, where it's just like high floor, can climb quickly, could be that Foscue type of mold where it's well above average hit. The EVs are enough and the approach is enough. Where's he going to play is the question. Is he a little bit of hybrid outfield, second base, plays a little bit of everywhere, but that's another solid. I like those types of guys in the third round, those college pieces, especially when you don't have a ton bonus pool wise. And then Devin Fitzgerald, heck, I'll take a chance. The same way we talk about Harvard Westlake, I'll take a chance on a Stoneman Douglas kid any day of the week.
Hey, that Mayo guy and that Anthony guy seem to be working out just fine.
Yeah, and then you're not even talking about the Anthony Rizzo one. You're talking about the Roman Anthony one. Lizardo guy, not too bad either.
Lizardo's fine too.
And they've got more guys that are continuing to fly through there. And Devin Fitzgerald, I know, has not too far as my own backyard. I know he's a guy that has created some buzz out there, and clearly he's getting drafted. But as a guy that they were excited about and thought could be even higher of a pick, didn't quite get the buzz that he was hoping for in the summer circuit. Still ends up potentially getting drafted here in the 5th round, and I'm sure we'll command over slot or at least right at it.
Cool. 2 more teams. We got to talk Toronto. This might just be like my personal vendetta against the Blue Jays right now because they're pissing me off at the major league level, and I just don't really think there's much going on in the minor leagues right now, especially with that PED suspension for Elvis Martinez. But they take Trey Savage at 20. He slipped to 20. Great job not overthinking this, just taking the ECU right-hander in the first round. After that, there's not really a name that jumps out to me here, and frankly, I don't really want to give the Blue Jays the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to, dig deep and find something. If you see value here, that'd be awesome. But man, you just felt like the Blue Jays had a pretty boring draft.
Thank goodness Savage fell to them. That was awesome.
Yeah,
right? that makes the draft for them.
Yeah.
But I agree. After that, it's I don't know if they were hoping to get have some oversought opportunities, and then once Savage fell, it was okay, we're gonna take this guy and then we'll figure everything else out, because that's kind of how the draft felt.
Yeah.
I do like Johnny King. I was able to see a little bit of him and the Florida kid, Naples area. I think there's some fun projection there, pitching wise, 6'3" lefty, but at the same time, I have no confidence in that. You talked about this with Cooper Boardman. I have no confidence in their ability to develop pitching. Great. Don't have to worry about that with Trey Savage.
Yeah.
He's done. He's pretty much good to go.
Right.
He found the splitter last year. The fastball plays well enough at the top with good carry. Slider is gross. Fast track this guy. They've really struggled with keeping guys on the field. I don't know if that's all their fault or their scouting or a little bit of everything. Yep. They definitely haven't helped. There's got to, at some point you got to look in the mirror, and when you look at all of the young arms who continue to go down for them so quickly is why it's concerning to me. Dude. It's everyone gets hurt, but it's right away with Barrera. It's right away with Marutis. It was way too quick with Tiedemann and continues to be with him. But it seems like I don't think there's anything you can do to fully prevent arm issues, but you can mitigate them, minimize them, delay them. Like there's things that you can see that maybe will help. I don't think the Jays do any of those things, but I do love that they get you Savage in a vacuum, ignoring the organization, to be able to get you Savage and then get two fun like upside plays on the mound from King, being a prepster, and then Cal Steven, or is it Stefan or Steven?
I have no idea.
I'll say Cal Steven. It's some fun stuff there. I mean, he landed the fastball for a strike at a 71% clip. Cool. Sits 93 with some good characteristics. Slider is pretty gross as well and landed that consistently too. So they get some decent arms, but I just would have thought they'd get a little bit more. They tried to do a little bit more later on in this draft, but it seems like after they got you Savage, they got it. Maybe Steven was a guy. Maybe they wanted. Maybe King was their edgy high school pick. It just seemed like it was kind of chalked the rest of the way.
Got you. Last but certainly not least was the Washington Nationals. I really like what they did with their first two picks. Now that we actually saw 30 come through, I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. They went shortstop, catcher, shortstop, catcher. 3 of the 4 were college guys. At number 10, Seaver King, we were like, what are they doing here? But then they follow with Loma Vida, who's probably going to get over slot at 39th overall. I think they did the quick math with the first 2 picks, and I like how they did that, man.
I wonder if they bought down Loma Vida. Like, do you think – because Seaver's fun.
Yeah.
I thought he's a middle first-round guy. Like, we had him as, 18 on our draft rankings. But once they locked in Seaver King, and presumably under slot, I don't think
I would think so, yeah.
Loma Vida was expected to go late in the first.
Yeah.
Maybe at worst, early compensation round. I wonder if, once it got to pick 28, once Yannick went, I wonder if they called and said, hey, Loma Vida, can we buy you down? Maybe they had a different plan. Maybe they always knew they wanted to go underslot with Seaver King, and they had a couple candidates that they didn't think would fall to them.
Right.
I don't know if they would have even considered Loma Vida falling to them at 39. So they might have had a different overslot plan. And we'll see what Loma Vida ends up getting. But I love this combination here. Seaver King in a vacuum is a little bit of a reach, but it's not that much of a reach to where you're saying, whoa, what are they doing there? They need to justify it with multiple picks.
No.
Loma Vida justifies it alone. This is a guy that across the board, it's 50s to 55s. Yeah. The only thing that's not is plate discipline.
Right.
And that's why we have a separate grade for that here. He has a good feel to hit. It's above average power. He's a good defensive catcher. At least can be average there. And it's just, can he cut down on the ridiculous chase? He gave away a lot of ABs, and that was one part of it. But I really like what they did there with those two. And then Jackson Kent, there's some intrigue there from the left side as a pitcher that also filled up the zone with a fastball, changeup, and flash ability with a slider too. So that could be a sneaky arm too. And they seem to be identifying these later, what do you call the third, fourth round? It's not middle. It's they're whatever. Late early, medium round lefties. That's one thing that they're starting to do a little bit better.
I'll call it middle. You know what? Front 2 is early round. I think front 3 is early round. 4 through 10 for me is middle round, and then 11 on is late.
Okay.
So,
I like that.
Behind that?
I can get behind that, and I think the big overslots might end up being Luke Dickerson.
Okay.
Because Dickerson ended up having some helium as it got closer and closer. I think the Yankees were even tied to him a bit more as a
Jersey high school, man.
It's on the come up, man.
Yeah.
So I think that's an area where that money goes. I thought they approached this great. You get 2 really fun college pieces, and then you get some upside there later on too. This is one of my favorite Nationals drafts I can remember.
Also, name of the draft, maybe 15th round out of St. Rita. Shout out the south side of Chicago.
Ooh.
Sir Jamison Jones, high school catcher from St. Rita.
I hope they sign him.
I'm totally here for Sir Jamison Jones.
That's an awesome name.
That's what we got, man. That was all 30 teams.
Well, we will be doing a little bit more on grades and answering questions later on. Next week we'll be doing a draft mailbag, so look out for those questions. We'll have those for you, the answers for you, and we'll have that out next week. Really excited to get back into the throws in the minor leagues down this final stretch here. A lot of promotions on the way, too, so I'm sure that'll be an episode next week also. A reminder, you can subscribe to the bonus episode in the description to make sure that your mailbag questions get answered. As always, thank you for listening. Look forward to talking prospects with you later this week.